Welcome to the channel Literary Aesthetics, a channel where you will find analysis and discussions about different literary pieces of English literature. Today I will continue the summary and analysis of Chapter 2 of the novel, covering its summary, and will try to analyze each and every character, the hidden themes, tone, and symbolism mentioned in Chapter 2 as a whole. So let's begin with our knowledge. Wuthering Heights is a classic English novel written by Emily Brontë and published in 1847 under the pseudonym Ellis Bell. It is the only novel Brontë ever wrote and is considered one of the greatest works of English literature. Set on the Yorkshire moors, the novel tells a dark and passionate story of love, revenge, and obsession between Heathcliff, an orphan adopted by the Earnshaw family, and Catherine Earnshaw, whose love for him is both deep and destructive. Their tumultuous relationship affects not only their own lives but also the next generation living at Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. Through its complex narrative structure, Gothic atmosphere, and psychological depth, the novel explores themes of love and hate, social class, revenge, nature versus civilization, and the destructive power of passion. Now I will start the summary of Chapter 2 of the novel Wuthering Heights. The chapter begins with Mr. Lockwood making another visit to Wuthering Heights the day after his unpleasant first encounter. Despite the cold reception he received before, he feels intrigued by his mysterious landlord, Heathcliff, and wishes to become better acquainted with him. When Lockwood arrives, he is not welcomed warmly. This time, Heathcliff is not at home, and he is greeted instead by a young, beautiful woman who behaves coldly and rudely toward him. Lockwood mistakes her for Heathcliff's wife, but he later learns she is actually his daughter-in-law, Catherine Linton Heathcliff. Another young man, Hareton Earnshaw, also lives in the house. He appears rough and uneducated, yet he seems to have some claim to the place. The atmosphere in the house is again dark, uncomfortable, and full of tension. The conversation between Lockwood and the household members is awkward and hostile. When Heathcliff returns, Lockwood's attempt to make polite conversation only irritates him further. As the snowstorm outside worsens, Lockwood realizes he cannot safely return to Thrushcross Grange, but no one offers him shelter. Finally, a servant, Zillah, grudgingly shows him to a room upstairs where he can spend the night. Now coming to the analysis of Chapter 2, starting from its characters, as some new characters are introduced in this chapter. 1. Young woman, Catherine Linton Heathcliff. Introduction. Lockwood meets a young, beautiful lady at Wuthering Heights and assumes she is Heathcliff's wife. Later, he discovers she is actually Heathcliff's daughter-in-law, the widow of his deceased son. Traits and behavior. She is cold, proud, and resentful, answering Lockwood's polite conversation with sharper silent responses. Her manner suggests both breeding and bitterness. She is clearly of higher education and refinement than Hareton, but she seems trapped in a hostile household. Despite her rudeness, her misery feels more like suffering than cruelty. She is a woman forced into circumstances she despises. Her name, Catherine Linton Heathcliff, connects her to both the Earnshaw and Linton families, hinting at a tragic link between the past and present generations. Symbolic role. She represents the loss of freedom and the corruption of gentleness at Wuthering Heights. Once connected to love and civilization through the Lintons, she now lives in emotional confinement. Her presence hints at Heathcliff's vengeance and domination over the younger generation. 2. Hareton Earnshaw. Introduction. Lockwood notices a rough-looking young man, rude and almost servant-like, though treated with familiarity by Heathcliff. He later learns this is Hareton Earnshaw, the rightful heir of Wuthering Heights. Traits and behavior. He is uncultivated and coarse, but there are hints of natural intelligence and spirit beneath his roughness. His language and manners show that he has been deliberately kept ignorant, likely by Heathcliff. His hostile attitude toward Lockwood shows insecurity and wounded pride. He senses his own low status despite belonging to the family by birth. Symbolic role. Hareton is a tragic figure of deprivation and revenge, the product of Heathcliff's cruelty. Yet his strong and untamed nature reflects the wild spirit of the moors themselves. He embodies both victimhood and resilience. 3. Zillah, the servant. Introduction. When the snow traps Lockwood at Wuthering Heights, a servant named Zillah reluctantly shows him to a bedroom. Traits and behavior. She is grudgingly kind, not warm, but practical and less cruel than the others. Her small gesture of hospitality provides the only hint of human decency in the house. As a servant, she reflects the uneasy household hierarchy. Even minor characters at Wuthering Heights display tension and distrust. Symbolic role. Zillah represents the ordinary person's fearful submission to the oppressive environment of the Heights. She survives by compliance rather than loyalty. In Chapter 2, Brontë uses these new characters to deepen the mystery and hostility of Wuthering Heights. Each person reflects a fragment of the house's dark history. Catherine, the younger, suffering under captivity. Hareton, the fallen heir. Zillah, the silent witness to oppression. Through Lockwood's confused and superficial observations, we sense that the present generation is haunted by the sins of the past, a key theme that drives the entire novel. Apart from character analysis, we will analyze the whole Chapter 2 regarding its theme, mood, and setting. 1. Gothic setting and mood. Chapter 2 deepens the Gothic atmosphere introduced in Chapter 1. The bleak weather, storm, and eerie house create a feeling of isolation and hostility. The physical coldness of Wuthering Heights mirrors the emotional coldness of its inhabitants. 2. Mysterious relationships. The relationships among the characters are confusing and mysterious at this point. Lockwood, and the reader, can sense deep tension between Heathcliff, the young woman Catherine, and Hareton. Their hostility hints at painful histories and complex family ties, which are later revealed through Nellie's narration. 3. Contrast between appearance and reality. Lockwood's misunderstanding, thinking Catherine is Heathcliff's wife, shows how appearances are deceptive in this novel. Emily Brontë uses Lockwood's limited perspective to build mystery and gradually reveal the dark past of Wuthering Heights. 4. Character study. Lockwood's naivety. Lockwood's social awkwardness and poor judgment are again highlighted. He cannot read people's emotions accurately and often misinterprets their relationships. Through him, Brontë introduces us to the world of Wuthering Heights from an outsider's eyes, confused, curious, and increasingly uneasy. 5. Foreshadowing. The storm and Lockwood's forced stay at the Heights foreshadow the turbulent events and emotional storms that will dominate the novel. The uneasy night he spends there, described in Chapter 3, marks his first encounter with the ghostly and supernatural elements of the story. Conclusion. Chapter 2 deepens the reader's understanding of the harsh and isolating world of Wuthering Heights while highlighting the complex dynamics between its inhabitants. Through Lockwood's observations and interactions, Emily Brontë establishes the stark contrasts in character, ranging from the brooding, intense Heathcliff to the reserved and enigmatic household members, and sets the stage for the unfolding tension and emotional intensity. This chapter not only advances the plot but also reinforces the themes of social alienation, class distinction, and the foreboding atmosphere of the Yorkshire moors. Overall, it builds a foundation for the reader to grasp the psychological depth of the characters and the dark, turbulent environment that will drive the narrative forward. Thank you for joining me in today's literary discussion. Stay tuned for the summary and analysis of the next chapters.